EJ, Abby, welcome to the Sapphic World Book Club, the first one of 2025, and we are holding on to the Christmas feeling because we need it
Yeah.
right about now. Are you ready?
Yes.
I think so. I think so. Yes.
Jade, let's go.
All right. The first question's for Abby. It came from the forums. How do you find the perfect voice for each character?
When I'm prepping and reading the book, I get a feel for what the author is saying and the descriptive words they use, and I sort of trust my instincts about what I feel. And I have only, I have so many voices inside me, so you know, I kind of follow the author's descriptors and words, and just trust myself. And sometimes I get images in my head or think of an actor or somebody that reminds me of the person, but generally it's kind of birthed of my imagination and the author's descriptions.
Do the books ever come with details on how they want the voices to be other than the book itself?
Yeah, sometimes, and I'll take those clues, like she said, and her voice was husky or breathy, or in her high pitched tones. You look for clues as you're prepping. Those are the things that I always kind of highlight and look for and make notes on the sides because I have to distinguish the voices from each other. So I'm always looking for those clues to figure out how to contrast, especially the main characters.
So when you're prepping, are you reading every book like all the way through before?
Yes. Yes.
Nice.
Yeah.
Caroline?
Yeah, I've got a question for EJ. Good morning. For you, it's
Afternoon.
Sunday already.
Sorry, what was that?
I said for you, it's Sunday already, and it's summer in
It
your
is.
part of the world.
It is, and it's we have a heavy rain watch. It's not very summery. It's actually quite cold. So
It's
welcome to New Zealand.
Well, it's fun though because last time you were on, we were all sweating our asses off, and you were there in a beanie.
Beanie, that's right. Yeah.
It's true. Merry Weihnachten.
hmm
What's your connection to Germany?
I think I might have a German grandma that I never met, maybe great grandma. I don't have one, honestly. I did take German in high school, and I got first place in year nine. Little humble brag there. I don't have one. I know German sort of keeps popping up in my novels for some weird reason. It just for this novel, it just kind of it worked. I needed an other sort of culture that had a lot of things for Christmas, and Germany sort of spreads their Christmas out, which gives me an opportunity to put my characters together a lot. But I have to be honest, the main reason I chose it was because I thought Mary Weihnachten sounded really funny. So I just decided that that was
Better
gonna
than
be the title. And I sort of yeah, just went with that.
It's better than Frolic Christmas.
So, yeah, only a little bit. Yeah.
Um, kind of, kind
Yeah.
of. Jade?
Um, yeah, for EJ, what are some non-fiction facts that inspired you to write this story? So maybe related to the traditions or things like that.
Oh. Um, I actually went on Twitter and asked people to give me their German and American Christmas traditions. Um, I wouldn't say I was inspired by Christmas traditions to write the story. I don't like Christmas very much, so it was kind of like you know, just an EJ Noyes kind of just do something that you don't know anything about or that you don't really, care about. Um, but I did get a lot of sort of information, like German and Austria celebrating on Christmas Eve instead of Christmas Day. The food that they eat, the pickle in the tree, which I later found out is not German. And we can talk about that later. Uh, and just like St. Nicholas Day on the 6th and all that sort of stuff was all sort of just interesting little factoids that um, I enjoyed and sort of tried to work into the novel. So
Abby, how much did you curse EJ when you read Annika was German?
Uh, well, it was a discussion. Um,
Because I mean, there have been like with Melina Mackay's book, she has like Italian characters, and she makes them, or she asks them to make them sound American. And this was
Yes.
definitely not American.
Yeah, but
Oh,
EJ writes in first person, so it's different because it's her thoughts. So that's what's a little bit tricky about it. I think, although I did one author, I did her thoughts were American and her dialogue was British, and I thought it's kind of strange, but it was too. It was just at that point I was like, that's just too much. Yeah, we talked about it. It was challenging, and then I had a someone I know who's German basically record all the German words for me, and that I had to say. So I had some help, and I was really grateful for that. But yeah, it's challenging. But I always want to do her book, so
I'm so sorry. I'm so
it's
sorry.
okay. It's okay.
It's
She
basically,
didn't
I'm
apologize.
writing one now, and one of the main characters is a little bit southern. I'm so sorry.
Southern? Oh,
A little
Southern.
bit.
Southern's fine. Southern's fine.
Moved to Los Angeles, so I need to just like chill with the accents for a little bit. I'm so sorry. Every time I'm writing, I think Abby's gonna fucking murder
You're just
me.
gonna kill me.
Same time next year, we'll see if she's still.
Yeah.
But
Um,
do you,
Speaking of,
oh yeah.
we've got a question.
Hmm.
Does EJ now write a character, knowing Abby so well she can hear her when she's writing a new novel, having collaborated so often?
Um, I wouldn't say I write with like Abby's narration in my head, but I think I'm now more conscious because I know my books will be turned into audiobooks. I know that Abby's very likely to narrate them, and we're friends, and so I do things like giving her a German accent, like because that's what friends do. Um, I no, not so much, but I am sort of mildly aware of not being too difficult, if that makes sense, as non-difficult as I can be while not changing the book as I want to write it. So. Yeah, no, I don't hear it until yeah, not until I've actually heard it. Yeah, I just don't have like that kind of voice in my head really. So
It's not that
it's a good question.
you call Abby and say like, okay, I'm writing this book and she's German. Can you handle it?
What I actually did with this one was I did actually ask Abby. I did that's right. I was sort of writing the book and I didn't actually have a clear sense for Annika. You know, I usually have an idea of who's sort of like the higher pitch or the lower pitch. And I didn't for these two. I just couldn't quite get it. So I actually messaged Abby and said, like, like you're going to have to narrate it with a German accent. Would you prefer the German character to have a higher pitched or a lower pitched voice? And she said, please lower. So I said, okay, that's fine. So that's sort of how I that's sort of how I described Annika. So yeah, but that was sort of an anomaly. Yeah, usually I just leave it to Abby because I know that she, knows what she's doing and will just go nuts and do a fantastic job with it.
And that's true, of course. I mean, Abby is, as we said in one of the ads for this book club, I think the voice of many a lesbian's dream.
The, the
um,
Sapphic
um,
dreams, not the voice of Sapphic dreams. I'm sorry.
uh, Too bad. But Abby, how did you get into narrating so many Sapphic books?
I really don't know, actually. I think it was because I think EJ was one of the first popular authors that I think you know what? I'm not really sure. It was like a strange anomaly and kind of phenomenon. And I think I did her books and they became really popular and sort of the fan base grew. And then I don't know, then the next author wanted me to do their book. It kind of grew of its own, strange and unique magic. I didn't really have any hand in that. It happened.
Like I mean, if we see there are a lot of Sapphic books coming out and a lot are narrated by you. I
Yeah.
mean, there are a few more narrators, of course, but how much time does it in your whole year schedule? How many are Sapphic?
I would say 90% now.
Wow.
Maybe 80%. Yeah. And I think that, a little bit once you move into a genre and you get a little bit pegged by some companies, like there's companies I work for that all of a sudden only give me sapphic books. And I'm like, I do lots of things. Like when I first started out, I did young adult, I did science fiction. I don't really, as long as the writing is good, I don't really care. I love to do it. So it's fine. It doesn't make a difference to me. But I think that, people kind of just, pigeonhole you in certain ways or your fan base
The
grows and you're like, okay, this is what I'm doing. You kind of go with it. Um,
typecasting, maybe.
and I'm sort of grateful. Yeah. I mean, I think it's interesting. It's an interesting phenomenon to me.
Is there anything like of all kind of genres and books and whatever that you would still like to do that you haven't done yet?
Haven't done yet.
Hmm.
Mm, I don't think so. I've done really, I mean, what I really love is memoirs. That's one of my favorites. It's just so intimate and personal and interesting writing. I haven't done one for a long time, but I think I've done almost all the genres. Especially when I first started out, I've done almost everything. So yeah,
Okay.
Write a memoir.
you have a
Yeah.
memoir? Can you write one?
Do I have to? Is that my next project? I'll have to write a memoir.
Yes, except she's not going to have an Australian accent. She's going to be an American version of you.
Okay. EJ, why are your books so often set in the United States? Do you have ties to the East Coast?
I have no ties to America. Hon honestly, except for friends that live there. It's honestly it's a marketing thing, to be frank. The American market is the biggest market, and generally people enjoy reading in a setting that they're familiar with and that they're comfortable with. So that's basically all it is. And also I don't know, I don't really find my Australia particularly interesting. Maybe because I live there. I've never really considered writing a book in Australia. And of course, I would then have to get like an Australian narrator. So, um, you know, it's sort of like, yeah. So that's the only reason. I'm sorry. It's not very exciting.
How did you do your research on Boston, and have you ever been?
I haven't been to Boston, no. And I researched using the internet. I Googled, which is how I do 99% of my research. It's amazing what you can find on Reddit. Things like Keytar Bear and all these random little things like that sort of stuff. Google Maps is a good one. Like they're going to the diner and I'm sort of like, Googling like, where is there parking here? Is it meter parking? Is it permit? Like that sort of stuff. So it's just the internet. It's not very exciting. Yeah, I'm just very, very good with Google. That's all it is.
I've got a follow-up one for Abby, on the recording process. How much input does the author have during the recording process? For example, where to put emphasis or to get recording on the same page as intended, like the right tone and things like that.
Very little, very little. So I think the author has to really trust whoever is narrating their book that they will interpret it correctly. When I do stuff independently through my own company, Omuse, I have more conversation with the authors because we're just in contact through the whole process. And once in a while, they'll send me character descriptions, but almost none. I kind of do my thing, and it's like I take your piece of art and then I do my thing to it, and hopefully you like it, and the collaboration works.
It seems to be.
Yeah.
Did you ever, in cases like that, did you ever get like, or do you send like a first chapter, like this is the way I'm going? Are you okay with this? Or is it just
There's
like I do the whole book and then good luck?
pretty for most people it's I do the whole book and good luck. There's one, I think Harper Audio always asks for a first 15 minutes,
Hmm.
and they also check your recording, making sure it all sounds correct. Actually, I think when I do ACX, when you do something independently, you send a first chapter, 5 minutes, and the author has the ability to. And I've had a few people chime in and say, "She sounds to this. Can you pull it back a little bit?" So yeah, once in a while, but it's not a. I think you really have to sort of trust the narrator because you don't have a lot of authors don't have a lot of input through the process.
I can also think that maybe first time authors or not as experienced as EJ would be like, um, Abby, please read it, do whatever you want, and not
Yes,
they
some
don't
people.
dare saying to you,
Some people, I had a first author who gave me a lot. I was like, this is too much. You're just gonna have to trust me. Like, I'm just
yeah.
gonna do my thing. So you hired me, you know what I do. Let me just do my thing. And if you like it, good. If you don't, find somebody else. But I'm always open to hearing what people want. But if it's too much, it's like I gets in my way a little bit. The book tells me everything I need to know, I feel like, because then it's the interpretation of what they're hearing in their mind. And it's like, I don't know if I can match that.
And if you, I mean, Annika is like a difficult accent, and you have to do it through the whole book with all the German words and stuff like that. How do you keep it consistent?
It takes me a lot longer. I spend a lot more time because I have to catch myself. Oh, that was not like I missed that sound. So it takes me a lot longer, I would say. But EJ and I discussed it, and partly there was an opportunity for someone to hire a German actor to do that section of the book and do a dual narration. But we talked about the fact because it's first person, that in every chapter, which is so much, the dialogue would be the other person trying to do the other character and me trying to do her. It just seemed ridiculous. I don't think it's good for the ear. I think it asks so much for the listener to listen to half the book interpreting the other person's character that we just decided to go for it. So I would just say it takes me longer, because I have to spend more time looking at my notes or catching myself making mistakes and be disciplined about it.
Is that just for books like this with like a heavy accent and then an American accent, or is like the dual narration, or is that just something you don't prefer to do?
I believe I don't love dual narrations. I think that if there's a lot of dialogue, it gets you into trouble because then you're doing the dialogue of the other person in your chapters. They're doing their dialogue in your chapters. And the person who's listening is like, well, she doesn't sound like her, who's now going to pop into the next chapter. So I think if someone has the ability to find different voices, especially if it's first person and they're, maybe not foreign, it should be one narrator doing the whole book. I think it's kind of gets a little too much. I think this whole like multicasting, it's just like it's like radio drama then, and then it's another thing. I think their listener has to be able to have their part in it too. They have to get used to the voices and adapt. So yeah.
Jade, you have more?
Yeah, I have a follow-up on planning for EJ. How long did it take you to plan and research this book with all the traditions?
Um, the easiest answer is no time. I have a tendency to write the story that I want to write, and then I go back and check the facts later, which is a really bad habit of mine, and it's not a great way to write books. So I write the story that I want to tell, and then I sort of went and had a look at the notes that I'd made, from what I pulled from social media, and then started Googling a little bit. Uh, yeah, so it was an as writing process basically. I don't plan as such. The most I have started doing is when I have like a dual narration book is I have like a tiny spreadsheet and it's just like chapter one, Evie, um, she meets Annika. Like chapter two, Annika, she's in her apartment. That just so I can keep a basic idea of what I want to happen from each character's perspective. Um, which then, I often end up sort of shifting that around. Yeah, so it's not a planning process for me. It's write first, plan later. So,
Have you ever had that
yeah.
blow up on you?
Yeah, a lot. Nearly every
Yeah.
book. Yeah, every book. Yeah, yep.
So what went wrong in
I
this one?
yeah. So the bigger, uh, if you have both the paperback version and either the ebook version or the audio, you may notice a slight difference on, I think it's page 233, regarding a Christmas pickle. Long story short, I had a bunch of German people tell me that the Christmas pickle on via social media, so mea culpa, that hide a Christmas pickle in the tree and whoever finds it, like yada yada, blah blah, whatever. And during the ARC process, the advanced reader copy, I was told, I was made aware that this is not a German tradition after all. And I'm like, well, expletive, 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 repeat infinity. So, I'm looking at it. I emailed Jay and I'm like, and what's what? And she's like, yeah, no, sorry, it's not. It's a German American Christmas tradition. I'm like, well, I've already written this book. Like, people are going to get mad at me for it, like all this sort of stuff. So I emailed my publisher and I said, hey, Bella, like, is there any chance I can change this? I think it was maybe 2 weeks before publication, maybe. It was close to when the publication date. And they said, yeah, we can do the ebook. That's fine, but the paperback has already gone to print, so that's set. And then I saw some more. But they'll fix it in the next run. And I'm like, well, what about the audio? I knew that Abby had already recorded it. Um, so what you may not know is I have no contact with Audible. So I've never spoken to Audible. It goes through my publisher. So anytime there's a thing, it sort of is like this multi-step process to do anything. So they email the publisher, and I'm like, I'm just going to go straight to the source. I'm going to email Abby and say, look, this is what happened. I screwed up. I did Google. I obviously, I don't know what I was doing, but I thought pickle was a thing. You may be getting a thing to just re-record this one little paragraph. Um, and she's like, yeah, just got it. It's cool. We're doing it. I'm like, okay, well, that's fine. So yeah. Um, and now it pains me greatly that there are wrong paperbacks in the world, but I just have to live with it. So yeah.
It's going to be a collector's item.
Well, that's what Jay said. You should charge $1,000 for each little collector's item. So what I have actually done is I've printed the correct page for all my giveaway ones and like slotted them in and just like been like, oops, sorry.
That's perfect. Although I
Yeah.
think it should be a tradition. I think it was very funny.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm not sure. It's just I think one of those things that gets lost in translation that perhaps some Germans moved to America and started doing it. But yeah, it's an American tradition that Americans attribute to Germany. Um, And I don't know, I took those two and I did Google and I think I looked at this thing that said pickle in a tree and I'm like, cool, pickle in a tree, and I didn't actually read the article maybe, like I don't know, but yeah, whatever. It's but that's the big one that I've had to actually correct. I mean, I'm human. I make mistakes all the time, so think of it as little gifts from me to you.
I think it's a cool anecdote. In a couple of years, you'll laugh about it. Um,
Maybe.
Especially if you see like the copies for like $1,000
Yeah.
on eBay and stuff. I have another question for you. Would you ever go to the locations your books are set and have like a take a walk in your character's shoes tour?
Be really awesome. I hadn't considered it, but yeah, I'd absolutely do that.
I think you could do like whole Sapphic trips if you do that.
Yeah, just like a little, maybe I should start like a little tour group, EJ's book tours, and we'll just go around my little locations and I'll point out these little things. Hey, on Google, I saw that this was here, and see if it matches up.
Yeah.
Good idea. I will
Do
do
you
that.
check on Google if it's like how old the image is?
I don't. Maybe I should. Maybe I should.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think they do
So
like
this burnt down,
every
but I
year
mean,
or
it's
whatever.
fiction.
So
I'll just chalk it up. It's fiction. Just like this burnt down in 1930. I'm like, oh, that's a problem. So.
oops. Abby, do you prefer first person or third person POVs when narrating?
I like first person. I think it's easier to get in the character's head that way, and then there's no separation. Um, Nonetheless, like said, I get to just kind of say it. Yeah, I feel like it's more intimate.
And have you ever like struggled to narrate a scene if it was too emotional or too sad or too funny or
Yeah, yeah. I've had both where I thought a book was hilarious and I was like, I cannot laugh. Like, I can't laugh. This is not going to work. Or too sad. And you have to kind of find the balance where you're expressing the emotion without letting it get in the way of the writing. I think you can get in the way. I think there's a little bit of that balancing act of bringing it to life without stepping ahead of the writing. Yeah.
Jade, you've got more questions?
Yeah. What was your most difficult book to narrate and why? And it's vague, so it could be an EJ Noyes book or any book.
Books just with a lot of similar groups of people, like 10 women who are all in their 40s sitting around talking, really hard. How do you distinguish the voices between them? Or even worse, 10 men, having some kind of meaning. That stuff is tricky because you're just kind of like, I only have so many ways to do this that someone's going to distinguish one voice from another.
Are there like any techniques that you use to differentiate?
Yeah, there's always pitch, there's rhythm, there's sometimes like imaging or a little bit of a dialect or age or sometimes even just keep creating an image in my mind changes the voice a little bit. Yeah,
But how would you sound out age? Like I mean, I get a child, but
mhm. Well, older people speak slower, have a cracklier sound.
mhm.
I think you just kind of feel into. I listen a lot in the world. Like I feel like I'm a very spongy person, so I'm constantly listening to people. So there are things just that I kind of pick up inside me
And then
that I
trying them out in the shower, going, "Oh, that's
yeah,
that's an 80-year-old woman."
I don't try voices out. Like I don't do character voices when I'm out. I don't do dialects. I'm not one of those kind of actors. I am very sort of quiet about my work. I kind of figure it out as I'm at the microphone. Sometimes I'll listen back and I'm like, oh, is that right? I don't know. I kind of feel when it's right and I feel when it's not right. And then I just trust myself about the process.
Have you ever made a choice at the beginning of a book, and then after like 10 chapters, you're like, "Oh my God, my voice is gonna hate me because I have to do this for like 25 more chapters."
No, I did that in a video game once where I did a very screechy thing and then I went in the session and it was long and I was like, what have I done to myself? But in a book, I did one book where I interpreted the character through the author's descriptions and I got to like chapter 3 and I'm like, this is totally wrong. This is not right. And I scrapped it all and I went back to day one again and fixed it.
Oh wow. That's
I listened back and I'm like, something doesn't feel right. And I went back and changed it.
that's commitment.
That's dedication for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Did you have more?
Yep.
Good.
I've got a question for EJ. If you haven't started yet, would you please write a sequel for Merry Weihnachten? And would you please ask Abby to narrate it?
Make it Dutch.
Make it Swedish.
You
Oh
could do
God,
Sinterklaas in Dutch.
Mary Sinterklaas. Okay. All right.
Very
All
Sinterklaas.
right. Sure, why
I'll
not?
I'll I'll invent a pickle for you.
Kaz says, uh, um, I mean, so I already do have an idea for the short story in the epilogues, which will be like the second um edition. Of course, I have to write the first edition for all my previous books first. Um, yeah, I'm just not sure what they would do. This is the problem with contemporary romance is once they've had their happily ever after, um, how do you create more drama? Um, and I think creating drama for drama's sake, just to create a book, I'm not sure I can do that as much as I love my characters and I just, like I just want to write the same characters over and over because I know them and I'm comfortable with them and they're just like, they're like friends. Like the Ask Tell series, there was more story there. Um, but yeah, this is, I think that's probably one of the things I get asked the most is can I write sequels to XYZ book? And I think I usually say, they're so happy, like what's going to happen to them to to make it hard. Like what obstacles will they overcome other than, like arguing about what to have for dinner or, someone didn't stack the dishwasher right. Like that's not very exciting, unfortunately. Yeah, they will have a short story and I have notes about what's going to happen in that. So-
Any sneak peeks for us?
no, God no. I haven't even written it yet.
All right. I've got another one for you. Why do so many of your characters work out every day? Yoga, running, etc.
It fills the time in a book. Honestly. It's a slice of life. Um, I think Um, Sophia in the Halcyon series never did. And I would argue that one of my favorite thing about Annika is that she actually never works out. She keeps saying, and this was really deliberate, she keeps saying, I'm going to join a gym. I'm going to come and use your treadmill. And then she never does. And I love that about her, that she just kind of went like, like, screw it, like, I'm not going to do that. Um, I don't know. I think it's healthy life balance to move your body a little bit. So maybe it just seeps into my books like that. Yeah. But yeah, it does. It just gives them something else to do, something to talk about, something to fill a few pages and just make them seem like real people. Yeah. But real people also don't work out. So maybe I'll make a note for
I
my
was
next
just
one.
gonna say, like, only
Mm.
that made Annika just like more person to me.
Yeah, and I
Totally
was
relate,
really
like
conscious.
not doing it.
Yeah. I was writing it and I'm thinking like she keeps saying she's, going to join a gym and she keeps saying like I'm gonna use and I'm like, but she never does. I'm like, well, where am I going to fit this? And that was actually the problem was I just could never find a spot to have her actually, like go to the gym. Like, the book's already long enough. Like it in for her, it didn't actually add anything. I thought it made it sort of funnier that she's just, and my perception of some Germans is that they are very conscious of, doing things in a certain way. And for her to sort of say she is going to do this and then to never do it, just made her human and funny to me. So yeah.
I have a question for you, Jay. Um, in the ebook, the author of the book given to Annika was written by Lee Winters, Leigh, and not our Lee Winters.
Yep,
Because obviously in the audio, I thought of our Sapphic Lee and vengeance planning.
yep,
Um, was
yeah.
it? Yeah, that was the.
That was it. And I spoke to Lee about it. And so I said, Lee, it is deliberately misspelled. Just, because I like to laugh and it made me laugh and it made Lee laugh. As well. Yeah, Leigh Winters. And that was the book I was thinking about. And if you were at GCLS last year, I actually did sign some of Lee's things as not Lee Winters, in that exact spelling as well. So yeah, which made her laugh as well. Yeah. So no, that was a deliberate thing.
I'm mindful of the time because we usually do like half an hour, but we have too many questions for you both. Do you both have like 10 more minutes?
Yeah.
Sure.
Sure. Okay. Um,
Sunday I've got nothing to do. So
we can keep you for hours.
yeah.
Um, let's see. Um, Abby, can you tell us more about your process, your process of narrating? Do you highlight each character line like a script, or do you just go and read it, or how does it work?
I probably in the beginning I did more notes. Now I think I know enough of my process that I don't have to make as many notes, but I generally like pull the characters aside. I write the descriptors so I know who they are, and then um, I can when I'm reading I can kind of see ahead a little bit, but I kind of highlight she said with a wry laugh so that I don't so I can incorporate the author's description as I'm saying the dialogue, and I don't have to stop. The goal is to not stop, to really keep it in a flow. So whatever I do to help myself, if I need to look up words I don't know in advance, if I need to mark the way the descriptors are, the adjectives for the characters, so especially with dialogue, that's it pretty much. And then just creating who they are, so I have that all worked out before I start.
And do you then have like visual things, like a little vision board for
Sometimes
the
I work on
characters?
an iPad and there's a program called I Annotate that you can use highlights and pens and notes on it. But sometimes I have paper notes that I just pin up in my booth and I can look up and see things, especially if there's lots of characters or a series where I need to remember
Like,
things.
yeah, 10 different men in a
10
thing.
different men around a boardroom talking. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Um, let's see. Is there any book that you would well, we have EJ here now. What would be your favorite book of hers that you could narrate that she still has to write?
That wait, say that again. The
Like
book that
if yeah, is there like a wish list EJ book for you that if she writes that, that will be the ultimate EJ book for me to narrate?
what I
Like
love
no
about it,
Germans,
but
no.
no accents, first of
No
all.
accents.
No accents.
I'll make it fully Australian.
Yes. I love all the variety. I mean, I thought it was so interesting. I mean, I don't know how she and I got connected. It was Audible who gave me if it was Alone was the first book.
No,
It was the Ask Tell series.
I'll tell you. I'll tell the story once you're done with this. Yeah.
Okay. Any book that EJ does, as long as there's no German accents or accents in it,
No, no other accents that are not a variation of an
or
American
actually
accent.
foreign
But do
languages
you, I
too.
mean, this one was like, we've been talking in the book club, of course. This one is like a lighter version of an EJ Noyes book. I mean, her last books were a more angst.
I
Wow.
like angst. I like that kind of stuff. I'm very drawn to that. When I did theater, I loved the dramas. Like I was not, I love, yeah, I love humans emotion. I love feeling. I love sharing the feelings. I like other people feeling. So yeah, I think angst and deep is really interesting. Humor is great, but I think that's probably my druthers would be more serious, but light's good too.
So,
I mean, I like
EJ,
angst,
have
but
you made notes? So no accents and
Accent.
angst
very happy.
and emoji. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, done. I'll have it to you in a few months.
And an inner
Um,
voice, speaking her inner voice. I like that.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I like angst too, but I'm a very empathetic writer. And I wrote alone and Asked Me Again back to back, and I was just in a deep pit. Like I was not well, like mentally, like it was really hard. And I need to balance, I need some harder stuff and I need some lighter stuff, um, with that. But I think my next books are the next book after the next one. I think I'm feeling a bit of angst, so you can watch out for that. So we started. I remember it very clearly. It was a early Saturday morning, and I checked. So, because I'm in the Southern Hemisphere, I get all my emails from my publisher when I wake up in the morning. So it's this weird kind of. So I wake up and there's all these emails, and I'm looking, and it's like audio, and I'm like, what? And I'm half asleep, and it's like, Tantor Audio's picked up your things for your books for the Ask Tell series, which at the time was just Ask Tell and Ask Me Again for audio, and I'm like, oh, cool. And I had listened to some of Abby's work. I think maybe Radcliffe on a series, maybe, and a few others. And I sort of had thought like that would, like I like the narrations, I like the sound of the voice, and I thought most importantly that I could picture Abby doing Sabine's voice, who in my head was so clear, as sort of having a deeper voice that she was always sort of slightly self-conscious about. And so I wrote back like, I'm standing in my bedroom, and I literally said, I really like Abby Craden's narration, like thinking there's no chance in hell, Abby's popular. And, I got an email back, like that was one of the narrators offered up, like done. And I was like, oh, okay, well, that was easy. So that was basically how it went. And then it sort of went from there, and audio, wake up, Em. Audible picked up my work after that. So, yeah, that was sort of how it happened. It was just like a random, quick sort of, yeah. I didn't really have any input aside from saying like, hey, I like Abby's work, and you know, just was a shot in the dark. So yeah. And that was in it was 2019, I think, maybe. I'm not sure. So, but it was a while ago.
Sounds like yesterday, but it's like 6 years ago.
Yeah, yeah.
It's true. I have a question for both of you. Do you ever do the actions while writing or narrating, like raising an eyebrow or something?
All the time. I'm just sitting at my desk, like mouthing words and making gestures, like I'm having a conversation. Because you might have noticed I'm a very, you've probably seen my hands by undisciplined hands that just, so I'm sitting here doing like this, like while I'm talking, and yeah, while I'm writing, yeah, all the time.
Abby?
Uh, Not really, because I have to be, when you're on the microphone, you can't tap anything or make any shirt noises. So there's all this like containment. But I will say that when I'm speaking dialogue, I kind of can look down and I look up sometimes as if I'm talking to the person. I sort of like look up from my page so I activate it. So I feel like I'm having a conversation. That's just kind of something I do. Yeah, but I don't think I move around too much because you really can't. I probably would like to. I'm a very physical person, so
It's not like the eyebrow raise, the famous Sapphic eyebrow raise.
maybe a sapphic eyebrow once in a while. Yeah, can happen.
Oh, there's a lot of Saphics winning, I think, right now. Jade, do you have more? So we do one or two more?
I've got a couple more.
Yeah.
I got one from AA or Abby. Do you find that you actually can or can't enjoy the books you have to perform, or are you able to compartmentalize to enjoy them for pleasure and not just work?
Well, it depends on the book. I have a different experience. When I read books for pleasure, I read real books, paper books. When I read for work, I read on my iPad. So I have a kind of a different experience. So I know like one's a workbook and one's a pleasure book for me. Sometimes when I'm recording, I really kind of go on a journey. Like I feel like it's my memories. Like I feel like I'm having like even though I'm doing all this technical stuff, I sort of I don't know. I can't even describe it. But I'm like I'll leave the booth, especially if I spend a lot of hours. I'm like, it feels like I just have this long experience and it feels kind of like it gets inside me a little bit. Um, so I will say to the angsty books, they do linger and they do drain me. Like I do feel, even though I really enjoy them, I will be like, oh, my energy can get really sort of tapped out. But so I enjoy them like I had this experience of the character more than like a reader outside of the experience. If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Well, you are the character.
Yeah, I'm good, and all of them. So it's kind of an interesting,
You're like
um,
schizophrenic.
kind of schizophrenic, kind of all
Yeah.
the people. Seems, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
This one is for both of you, and Abby, if you want to go first. They want to know what your favorite part of the process is. What part brings you the most genuine joy?
Hmm. I think this might sound weird, but when I get feedback from people and say how much the books have helped them, like get through a hard day or a long drive, or a hard time in their lives, I'm so gratified by that because I do it alone. I do it on a microphone. I have no feedback. I have nobody there. It's just me having my experience. So it's very, I don't know. I'm a sharer. I like to collaborate. I like to be with people. So as an kind of an extrovert, to be introverted in my booth is challenging for me. So to know that what I do solo actually affects people and impacts them feels really good to me. So it's like the fact that it makes people feel or makes their day better or their drive better makes me feel really good and satisfied.
That's awesome.
I think mine would probably be the same. I mean, from a technical standpoint, editing is always my favorite part because that's when my editor Kath comes and fixes everything for me. But hearing people say that they've enjoyed my work, again, that they've touched, it's touched them in some way, helped them perhaps process something, or just made their day like slightly better because for whatever reason. Because like Abby, I mean, I think my process is probably slightly less solitary. Because I talk to friends about it and I do give my work to readers and they give me feedback and stuff like that. But on the whole, I'm just at my desk by myself, Googling and writing. So having that feedback really, I mean, it sounds a bit cliched and corny, but it sort of makes it worth it really, to know that you've reached somebody with your words.
Before we wrap up, I'm just curious if either of you has anything on writing, on narrating, or on this book in particular that we haven't covered that you think would be interesting or you'd like to share.
I think the pickle antidote's probably, yeah, so that's probably it for me. Yeah, I can't think of anything.
We had lots of
Mm,
good questions this time.
yeah, we did. No, I don't. Not from me. I don't think so. Except I will just another apology to Abby for the German. I'm so sorry.
I
Or
think
grovel.
sometimes when I feel if I get kind of like my concentration starts to flag or my energy, I really try to close my eyes and imagine people out there listening. I kind of create an audience for myself. So I feel like I'm really trying to communicate to people because it's tricky. You have to really remember this is not for your own experience or your own, keeping it smooth or technical or blah blah. It's really for somebody else. So how do I do that? How do I interpret somebody's work so that other people really receive a story? A, without getting in the way, and B, filling it with enough. So it's an interesting balancing act, I think, which I think makes a really good narrator the difference between, because sometimes narrators can get in the way, or sometimes they can be under the writing. It's like that balancing act to me.
Okay, let's wrap it up. What's next? What can we expect next from you?
From
Well,
me?
for
Oh,
you, for both.
Both of
oh
you.
gosh, always doing a lot of books. I'm trying to think of what I have. I just finished another of Eve Wood's books in her fantasy series. Yeah, and I have there's a couple of new authors I'm going to be working with, which is interesting to me in different companies. So yeah, there's always stuff.
Always stuff going on.
Yeah.
And AJ?
I'm working on my 16th novel, which is the um, actress and makeup artist who work together. So I'm about three-quarters of the way through my first draft of that, and that'll be an August release, I believe. But I will hopefully have some early copies in July if you come to GCLS. You might be able to snag yourself that, assuming I can get it written in time. So there's always that problem.
And no sneaky pickles.
Yeah, sneaky pickles. Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of research for this one that I have actually, again, I have yet to do. I'm doing it again. I am writing the story and then I'm going to talk to the people that I need to and get them to fill in the actual details. So if you hear screaming, it's me from New Zealand that I've done it to myself yet again.
Well, thanks
Alright.
everybody for coming. This has been great. We got some great questions ahead of time, and we got some great questions in the chat today. Abby, EJ, thanks for being here.
Thank you so
And
much.
yeah. And Caroline, what do we are we announced for what's next, or are we gonna make everybody wait?
Well, we know what book is going to be next, and that's going to be Sharon Angelisi, and Behind Her Eyes.
All right.
Very nice. So pick that up if you can and read it. And it's going to be the 8th or the 15th of February. We're working on the dates.
The
So
8th.
the 8th. It's going to be the 8th.
We're good for the
Yay!
8th.
It's going to be the 8th.
All right.
February 8th, Sharon Angelisi, Behind Her Eyes will be the new book club for February. And just keep
Great.
your eyes on our socials and you'll know everything you want to know. And you can always, of course, email us, sapphic@gmail.com if you have questions.
Thanks everybody for coming and sharing some of your Saturday or Sunday with us, and we'll see you.